morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of Tidbits from the Road. I am your host, DJ Harbaugh, and I am heading up to the Great White North. Yes, I'm heading up to visit our friends in Canada, and I am heading up to visit your friend and mine, Trev, from Model 3 Owners Club. We're going to get up to some shenanigans up there. I think Trev's going to school me a little bit on how to make videos. That'll be nice. Although he's working with a little bit better equipment than I am, so we'll see what can translate. I'm sure that some stuff can, because if you've ever tuned into his show, you can see his production value is just through the freaking roof compared to mine. I can only aspire to be as good as some of the other folks that do this out there. But hey, I'm just a guy from Ohio that kind of found himself in this, and that's what I'm going to talk to Trev about a little bit too here. You know, kind of his journey into where the Tesla obsession started, and then, what led him, I'm sure it's probably a similar story to mine, but we'll see, to create Model 3 Owners Club, and get that out there. And then he creates Model 3 Owners Club and turns out to buy a Model X. So we'll see how that ended up happening too. So yeah, stay tuned. I'm going to keep with you here. As you can see, currently I'm on I-90 East in New York. I'm not quite halfway there. I might be halfway there at this point. I started this endeavor off at about 5:30 a.m. local time. And as of right now, or at least as when I started, the GPS said that I would reach Trev at about 10 after 1. However, I didn't realize that I still had avoid toll roads on my GPS, so I might get there a little quicker than I expect. We will see. Anyhow, stay tuned here. I will be back either with Trev or with a little in-between update as I'm moving along here. So take care. So I told you I'd be back with either Trev or some other update. So yeah, here's the update. I'm getting ready to pull into the Angola service station here on the New York Turnpike in New York. And anyone that's ever traveled from Ohio to Buffalo or Niagara Falls or wherever your end destination kind of on I-90 happens to be, I'm sure you know what the Angola service station is. I think, I've remembered even since I'm pushing 40 now, and even as a teenager when we went to Niagara Falls, I remember the Angola service station because it's like the only place on this turnpike to get like food or rest or bathroom break or anything. So shout out to the Angola service station and anyone that works there. I appreciate you all. All right, after a ton of driving, I have arrived in the Great White North, and I'm joined by Trev of Model 3 Owners Club.
Hey, everybody.
Or Trev or Trevor.
Either way.
Doesn't matter.
I respond to Kevin as well.
I'm going to do the same thing we did with Nick. We're going to take a drive in White Knight over there and have some lunch. And on the way to lunch, we're going to have a little Tesla discussion on the way. So why don't you come and join us and hop in. Sure. So I'm sure you've said this a lot, but it's probably not going unnoticed. We're sitting in a Model X here, and you're the owner of Model 3 Owners Club. So I got to know what the story is behind this.
It's a question that I get quite often on the YouTube channel. Well, it's basically very straightforward. When I first saw the Model S in 2009, I was like, I gotta get me one of those cars. But of course, with the price being so high and stuff, I said, well, it's going to take me a while. So I started saving money, to get a Tesla. And then, a few short years later, in 2012, Tesla showed the Model X. Now, I'm a longtime SUV driver. I like SUVs, love the Model S too. But when I saw the Model X, I said, that is what I really would like to get.
Well, right. It's like Elon's already said, it's the Fabergé egg of automobiles. It's gorgeous, and it's got all the bells and whistles.
Absolutely. And I like technology. I'm like you, we're in the technology business. That kind of stuff spins my propeller, right? So, anyways, but you know, when you look at your bank account and you go, man, it's going to take me a long time. I can't really afford that. Of course, you know, when Tesla started talking more about the Model 3 in 2013, I thought, well, maybe that's more attainable. So I kept saving money, and I just knew that the Model 3 was going to be a big deal. So that's when I started the forum and so on and so forth. But then we had a situation in Ontario where our very generous rebate was potentially going to go away. And
then it did.
Well, it did, but the timing was critical for me because I was really counting on the rebate because I was really, you know, dogging to get myself a P3D. But I was really hoping to get the rebate. Well, of course, the timing didn't quite work out. And lo and behold, I looked at my bank account and I went, well, looks like I can get the car I really, really would like to get, and that's a Model X. So that's what I decided to do. I got the Model X because it fits my needs better. I'm still employed. I still do my business and stuff. I need to move around big boxes and stuff. And that's a bit of a challenge on the Model 3. And it's also the car I wanted. It has more interior volume. It's, you know, it's got a lot of tech. The windshield is killer.
Yeah, this thing, you know, as a tall guy, this car is just... It's amazing. And I think I told you before too, because I got a chance to drive one of these. It's been a couple years ago now, kind of when they were first really rolling out. And as a tall guy, when I took my test drive and I pulled up to a stoplight, and you know, even in my Model S, I'm like kind of hunkering down sometimes to see a traffic light. That is not a problem with this thing.
This thing has got
it's
tons of headroom in it for sure, even as a tall guy like yourself.
Yeah.
I'm 5'10", 5'11".
Yeah, I mean, you look at this. I'm sitting straight up, and I have no.
And you
problem
have the seat
clearing.
way up because my wife normally sits there.
Oh,
she
yeah.
likes it way up, so you can scooch down if you have to. But anyways, to make a long story short, I decided I was going to get the Model X because that's really what I wanted, and I was going to give the Model 3 reservation to my wife. I'll donate her the $1,000, my position, whatever the case may be, should she decide to get a car. Now, you know, we've explained this many times before. This is our primary driver. This is what we drive 99% of the time. So right now, it doesn't make financial sense for us to buy a Model 3, which in Canadian dollars right now, the lowest price is about $60,000 for a car that we don't drive. Like,
right.
We have a 2009 Volkswagen Golf, and it has like 30,000 miles on it. It's 43,000 kilometers.
Pretty lightly driven.
It's like in mint condition. So anyways, from a financial aspect, it just doesn't make sense. So we're perfectly willing to wait and see what happens. That's her decision. It's not mine. I've spent my money on this. Her money is hers, and she can do what she wants. So yeah, so for those of you who are asking about why, that's the answer and stuff. It's not like I'm not any less enthusiastic about the Model 3. It's just the car fits my needs right now. I would love to have a P3D in addition to that. But why would I get that? I was also very fortunate, of course, to get one of the Roadsters. Well, I haven't seen it yet.
Right,
so
yeah.
we'll see. So, yeah, we're kind of in the same boat. We'll transpire. It's been very frustrating to get information out of Tesla as far as what's going on, because it's still early days. You know, they say it's going to be 2020 on that. So
yeah, until they really kind of have, because they have the reservations out there for the Roadster. Like, you can go reserve one if you want it, but they don't really. There's nothing more than what we've seen, and I get the feeling that they're just not really ready to do anything with the Roadster yet. I mean, they're still dealing with Model 3 right now, and that's more important to them, honestly.
Yeah, exactly. Model Y will be the next one. So the other stuff is small potatoes. It's not a priority. I mean, Model Y is a priority. The semi-truck is a priority, I think, for that type of business. The Roadster is just a toy. It's going to be so low volume.
Right. I mean, it's going to be like the original Roadster. Like, that's the numbers they'll do.
Well, I think the numbers will be potentially higher because of the performance specs of the car.
True. And the name now, because Tesla, when they released the Roadster, was very little known.
Yeah.
Now, you know, as I told you at lunch, they have, you know, a couple 100,000 rolling billboards around the world here. So
despite the higher cost, I think it's still going to do quite well. But it's not going to be 500,000 cars a year like Model 3 is going to be, right?
Well, and I think you're going to get like the celebrities out there. I think once they get a chance. I mean, did you get to see Jay Leno take his ride? I mean, like, he's literally screaming in the middle of going down the road in this thing as Franz is jumping on the thing and yelling, "I'll buy one, I'll take one now." Like, I think the celebrities, once this thing is out there and they see actually this is weird to say, what a value the Roadster will be compared to other hypercars. I mean, you could go get a McLaren for like $1 million, or you could get a Roadster at $250,000, and that will probably beat that McLaren, at least 0 to 60. Now, maybe not over time, because that's the Achilles heel of EVs. You know, once you get at speed, you lose that speed. But I'll tell you what, it'll take that McLaren a while to catch up. That's for sure.
Yeah. The Roadster certainly has, you know, some value proposition for a certain segment of the market. I'm kind of hoping, and this is just me because I have a YouTube channel much like you do and stuff. I'm hoping to be able to tap into some of that, those kids, the supercar kid, crazy YouTube numbers that they get. You know, you get these young kids they're getting their hands on these supercars and stuff, and they get these crazy subscriptions. I don't understand it, but I'm hoping that the Roadster will help the YouTube channel in some of those respects. It'll be kind of fun.
Yeah, because it's going to be rare. I mean, you know, Model 3s now, or at least on YouTube, are kind of a dime a dozen at this point. You know, Model X, Model S, you know, it's not really too. I mean, it's rare, but it's not really special. But that Roadster will be something special.
At for a little while.
The few folks out there that have them, that have YouTube channels, that will be pretty awesome.
There's really not be any shortage of YouTube videos.
Yeah,
Tesla Roadsters.
no. Once that thing comes out, that will be covered left, right, and center for sure. Now I gotta ask, because more than a couple YouTube channels have said they're gonna make the grand tour of kind of the country or the region or whatever, visiting people or referrals. Are you going to make a tour of any kind?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I've made it very publicly known that that's what I intend to do. There's others, of course, like Zach and Jesse have intents on doing that. Ryan wants to do a little bit of that. So yeah, kind of the behind the scenes, because most of us guys in the Tesla community all know each other. We talk to each other. That there might be some collaborations with that in the near future, whenever that happens.
You can just line up like 5 of them next to each other. Find a drag strip and go play around.
I can't talk about everything. There might be some, let's just say we're on the right track.
Well, yeah, in this, you know, I didn't notice. Do you have the 20s or the 22s on this?
Actually, these are my winners, so these are 20s, but
Okay.
I won a set of 22s from the referral programs. I ordered the car with 20s. So those are my spring and my summer tires, because those things are so darn expensive.
Well, I was going to say, so regardless of which set of rubber you have on this, you know, 20s aren't anything to sneeze at either. So I know my 19s, so Tesla actually replaced my 19s when I was I had my annual 2 annuals ago. And I was talking to them about, because I was asking them the question about whether...
See, it doesn't grind.
Yeah.
See? Noise is gone.
I was talking to them about, you know, is there anything that a local mechanic would need to know if they're going to put it up and do balance? Because I know that because of the weight of the car, the balancing, or not the balancing, the alignment is...
now you get to check out the flimsy little...
is a lot different than the...
Flip it down, and it might help you a little bit if you need it. There you go.
Kind of stay under it a little bit. It's a lot different than a standard car. And he's like, well, why? The service tech was like, why wouldn't you just have us do it? And I said, well, you know, I don't live near here, and you know, I'm probably going to have them put the tires on the car. You know, so I just need to know, because I want to have an alignment done at the same time. And they know how to make a sale. They said, well, we've got the rubber here, and the rubber itself would have been about $100 more expensive for me to get the rubber through Tesla.
Yeah.
But they said, we'll throw in the alignment for free. I'm like,
okay, done deal.
Because then it ended up being slightly cheaper for me to have them just do it, and I felt better about it.
Well, that's cool.
Actually, incidentally, if you were looking for a cheap way to rotate tires, and you don't want to go to the service center, I have successfully done this without issue. Actually, if you open your manual, you will be able to find the jack points on the car. You can go anywhere and show them, here are the jack points on the car. Don't stay within those jack points. But yeah, you know, I have a local, you know, quick lube place, and actually, I'm not the only Tesla that goes there either. That, you know, I go in there, they pop me up, they make the change, and that's it, and I'm out of there in 10 minutes, if that.
Yeah, we have a this won't even fit in my garage.
Oh, geez.
Well, it'll fit sideways, but I have a tough time opening the doors. And the car's too long. So the garage door won't even close. So I don't bother. So I know a lot of people asking me, why do you leave Model X or your White Knight outside? Because it don't fit in my garage.
Well, and that was a funny thing too. When I didn't even think about that, because again, coming from a Honda Civic, I didn't even think to measure my garage to see if the freaking car would fit. It does, not by much though, because so I'm definitely making use of my ultrasonics when I pull in, because if I don't get fairly far up, I got maybe that much.
Yeah, well, you're driving a Model S, which is a big car, but this thing's even bigger than a Model S. So, yeah, I do rely on the ultrasonics quite a bit. I'm a terrible parallel parker.
Hey, you did a phenomenal job at lunch.
What you experienced was the best parking job I've probably done in 30 years. So don't judge me by that, because I'm not the best. I actually aced my driving test way back in the day with the parallel parking, but that was the one and only time I actually did it right. So I actually tend to use the automatic parking when it works.
Yeah, as I mentioned, is the P going to show up? And for
Not
me,
so much.
For me, because sometimes I'll put it into reverse to make that parallel park, and then it will show up after I do it, and then I hit the button. But yeah, of all the features in tech in this car, the one that's the least reliable, it's the automatic parallel parking, or even perpendicular parking is even worse actually.
And it's slow.
It is slow, yeah.
Right, and the one thing I notice is a lot of drivers around you, when you tend to use it, they get frustrated.
Yeah.
So then they tend to get impatient, and they'll go around you, and of course that freaks out the system, so it basically comes to a halt. So it's just like, you got to be careful when you use it. It's only like in dire circumstances I tend to use it, because it just gets people too upset.
Especially when you want to get that tight parking spot that you don't know if necessarily you can rely on yourself to do, but we'll let the computer handle it.
Well, I tell you, when I use it, it's like my foot is like a quarter inch from the brake pedal at all times, because you just never know.
Well, and that's anything autopilot related. You gotta be ready to take over at any second, just in case.
Mm-hmm. Here we go.
So actually, to get back to a bit of a Tesla, Ben, you mentioned the frunk for the Model X.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, my frunk, so the Model S had a bit of evolution in the size of its frunk, right?
Yes.
So you went from this cavernous thing when there was no front motor.
So you have the microwave.
So I'm in the middle.
You're in the middle.
So it's not Model 3 where you got a carry-on size and that's about it, and it's not the cavern. It's kind of right in the middle. So whereas if you in the old single motor cars, even when they had, because it used to be, if you had a single motor car, after they had introduced dual motor, they still gave you the cavernous frunk if you didn't order dual motor.
Yeah.
So I have dual motor, and B, I was after that fact anyway. So that giant spot that you would normally have, then plus the little hidden bonus space, I don't get any of that.
Yeah, you lost a third.
Now, granted, my frunk is pretty big, and I can get a lot of use out of it. Travel tip for you folks out there: if you play trunk Tetris and you get everything packed in there, and you're going somewhere on a multi-day trip, throw a bag just for your hotel stay for the intermediate stop in the frunk. You will thank me. Yeah, so what's the frunk space in this thing like? Because I think that's always been kind of the same, if I understand my Model X
best
history.
way for me to describe it, well, I'll show you when we stop. You'll have a chance to take a look at it. You can put it on your camera if you want. It's wide.
Okay.
It's wide. It's fairly deep this ways, but it's not deep this ways like the older Model S did before they switched to the dual motor. It used to have the microwave spots.
Right.
So we certainly don't have that. But it's large. I can put a set of golf clubs in there. I'm not a golfer, but you can actually put a set of golf clubs in there.
I could not get, because actually when I was going on vacation last year to Alabama, I had to put my golf clubs in the trunk
mm-hmm.
Because they would not fit into the frunk.
Yeah,
I wish they would have.
The well on this one is very deep too, in the back.
Well, and even that, they would not fit in the well back there either. I had to basically shove them all the way against the seats.
I'll show you the well on this. You'll see how big it is too. You can put a person in there. It's big.
So you have AP2.
Yes.
So you have the gloriousness of the promise of full self-driving one day. Two things. One, as I've noticed, now we have been kind of driving aimlessly, but how often are you using Navigate on Autopilot? And did you did you go for the pre-order for full self-driving?
So no full self-driving. I did spring for enhanced autopilot. I use Navigate on autopilot if I have a physical destination put in and I'm on the 400 series highways here. One of the nice things, of course, on the highway we're just driving down here, we have an HOV lane over there.
Yeah.
And when I have it on Navigate on autopilot, because I have HOV lanes turned on, and I'm close, it's nice. It makes a beeline for the HOV all by itself. I don't have to initiate anything. No lane changes. It just does it, which is kind of fun. So I use autopilot. I don't use it in town. I will use cruise control in town, if there's traffic or whatever. But on the highways and if we're going on long trips, I will use it. There's a nice doggy there.
I see you got a puppy over there.
That is a
is it a Shiba Inu?
Yeah, it's one of those the Japanese dog. Really nice.
No frunk for that one though, Earl.
Sorry, Earl. No frunk. He doesn't have a frunk puppy. He's driving a Ford. Oh well. Anyway, so getting back to autopilot, I use autopilot generally on long distance travel stuff. If I'm going short distances, whatever, I don't tend to use it. Do I think it's worth the money that Tesla charges? No, but what can you do? You gotta pay for the money.
See, I'm the opposite. I think it's the biggest steal possible. I think they could get away with charging more, and people would still happily buy it.
Well, I know for me it's a tough swallow because, in Canadian dollars, because everything that Tesla does is priced in US. By the time you do your conversion, it's 30.
Yeah, you're taking a premium.
Oh my God, it's over 30% more. So, things, it adds up very quickly. So for me, autopilot cost me, gosh, I got to remember, I think it was $6,600.
But that was before they raised the price.
That was before they raised the price,
Because that was when it was still $4,000, I think.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, exactly. That's what it is.
US, sorry.
Yeah, sorry. So,
sorry to my international listeners. I love you guys out there, and I try desperately to remember to frame units in terms of if I'm using US or not. So my apologies out there. I will try and do better for you folks. But yes, 4,000 US.
Yeah. So, now that I have it, I'm glad I spent the money. It's over with. It's done with. I think in some ways I would actually be hard-pressed to maybe buy it after the fact.
Well, yeah, because then you pay the penalty after the fact.
Well, yeah, that makes it even worse, right? And I know a lot of people, of course, being Model 3 guy, I know a lot of people that stretch their budgets like crazy, even to get
the Tesla stretch.
The Tesla stretch, it's a real thing. And they didn't spring for autopilot. Well, so now they're stuck like, I've experienced it. Or they do the 2-week trial, and now they're faced with a $7,700 bill to buy it after the fact. Canadian, of course. But,
right. So, and that's the thing too, and that actually, it's literally the double-edged, well, not figuratively. I got to use that word correctly.
Figuratively.
The double-edged sword of Tesla, because you didn't have to pay for it up front, and you can never get it. At least you do have that option, and I have given that advice to a lot of people in the past that, hey, if you got to decide something whether you want it or not on your Tesla, if it's something that can be added after the fact, then leave it out. Buy the thing, battery range, that you can't add later. Although I guess that's not true now that they've changed the way Model S and X are.
Well, S and X, but not on the 3.
But yeah, the 3. So, moral of the story being, if it's a hardware piece that must be ordered with the car, put your money into that, and you can always add the software stuff later.
Exactly. That's what I've always told people too. Same thing. I mean, yeah, there's a penalty. That penalty on there, that Tesla's doing for autopilot, that's an incentive.
Yeah.
That's really what it is at the end of the day.
So I was remarking to Trev on the way up here, and before I made the trip up, I said, when I first got to drive a Model X, I was getting into it from a Honda Civic, and the S is a big girl, the X is a bigger girl, and so I'm used to a car that can turn on a dime. And I don't got to really, I have all infinite.
I should probably want to turn right if you take the highway.
Maneuverability, right? Mm-hmm. And then I got to test drive the X, and I'm like, I don't know if I could have this car. As cool as I think it is huge. So I was telling Trev on the way up, I'll be curious to see, now that I've been driving a Model S for almost 2 years, now that I'm used to that form factor, if the slightly extra size that the X is makes nearly as much of a difference. One thing I will never get tired of is this window, though.
It's literally the... Oh, watch out.
Yeah, I see him over
yeah,
there.
it's literally the best feature of this vehicle. Absolutely the best feature of this vehicle. Now, it's not perfect. It does have some issues, because right now we're facing into the sun.
Right.
And now I have to use my dinky little sun shields, or my blinds, visors, whatever you want to call them, and they're barely effective.
It's tiny.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, because of my height too, that I'll be seeing over that blind, and it won't matter.
Now they do give us a sunshade, which is a mesh piece
Right.
that fits into here, and I have used that once. My wife was working on her laptop, and she was getting too much reflections.
Mm-hmm.
But otherwise, I love this. It's the open air feeling is wonderful in this car.
Yeah, this. Now you still kind of have a little bit of A-pillar visibility problems, but not like the S does. That's the best thing about this is.
I mean, look how far the windshield is too. I mean, it's way the heck out there. It's 3.5 feet from my nose. It's a lot of room.
Which is the one thing that I'm still not used to in my S is, again, coming from a Honda Civic, I just do not have the judgment on how far ahead the front of my car is. Even after driving it for nearly 2 years, it's just not there.
Well, what I really like is, if you sit in a Model 3 after driving one of these, and you compare it to an S, the Model 3 fits right in between the S and the X as far as front visibility. This is obviously an exception. I feel Model 3 is a very close second to this, because, the fact that they pushed the dash down low, forward, and they've actually moved the crossbeam back. And I happened to notice it the other day when I was in Florida. I actually spent quite a bit of time actually just comparing it again. And it looks to me they've moved the cross pillar back at least 2 inches on the Model 3. So it has excellent visibility.
So now Nick didn't really have a YouTube presence. Obviously, I am punching up a bit coming and visiting you. You got anything new on the horizon here, or that people should know about, or kind of the same old, or
same old? So for me, the winter months are very much, just kind of chill, take it easy, just see what's going on, and then things really pick up again in the spring when I get out to different car shows. Like I've already signed up for 3 or 4 car shows already.
Nice.
So you'll see a lot more content when I go to those type of things. We're going to do some more Model 3 meetups here in the spring. We just had one, of course, in Florida. So those are my active months. It's really basically from May till about, December timeframe is when I do more and more stuff. Again, because we have, potential the Roadsters coming next year, we'll certainly do some content with that. But right now it's just hunkering down, continuing with the, with the podcast situation, and building out the forum and stuff. I think I've mentioned it before on the podcast and at Cars and Coffee when in Florida that we're already set up to handle the Model Y. Mm-hmm. So when the reveal of the Model Y comes out, the forum will be already set up. I've already purchased some new domain names that all point to the current website. So when Model Y actually gets revealed, we're setting it. So we're definitely going to be branching out to that, and of course the Roadster as well. So when the time comes, it's not just going to be Model 3. We're going to handle more and more of that traffic. We're seeing more of that now. Now that deliveries are actually in Europe now, the membership's even growing. We're seeing much more activity and stuff. And it was like the same way when we started the forum. You had the usual people that come in and stuff, but the membership basically blew up once cars were actually getting delivered in the U.S. and in Canada. It exploded, and now we're seeing that second explosion because of Europe coming online.
Congrats to everyone out there that are getting their cars out there. I know that they're still fairly rare over there. Thanks to
that will change over the next few months. You'll see. Pretty soon, you won't be able to spit without seeing a Model 3. That's
right,
for sure.
And
don't forget the
UK. I was just going to say UK and Australian viewers. Sorry, guys.
Later this year, after the summer, you'll see.
Yeah, actually, that's a good point. So, yeah, probably, second half this year would be when I would expect you folks out there in the right-hand drive markets to start seeing your cars.
It shouldn't take too much. I've studied as many schematics as I can on the Model 3, and the firewall, if you want to call it a firewall, is symmetrical. So they've actually thought about that about movies.
Well, yeah, because actually, if you look at these cars, there's an angle to the screen,
yes,
whereas
you have to reverse that.
They don't have that problem on the Model 3.
And that's all part of the simplification of the design and the building process of the Model 3, irrespective of their problems with getting the production line up and running. But as far as those kind of things, and that's definitely a direction I think Tesla's taking for any future cars, is more thinking about the future for right-hand drive, left-hand drive, is making more of their interior designs, bodies and stuff much more symmetrical. It just makes it easier for them.
Well, yeah, because I mean, basically all they have to do is they slap the steering wheel on the right side instead of the left side and call it a day.
And switch the software around the other way. Put your autopilot on the right instead of the left, and you're good to go.
I mean, the software change is cake for them to do that.
Yeah, and I think that was all part of the plan right from the beginning.
So I was talking with Nick about.
How you doing, Nick? By the way, he's a good friend of mine.
Oh, good. In our video that we had, and he made the same comment. I'll see if you've noticed the same thing. Nav on Autopilot behaves a lot like a computer, and not much like a human. And by that, it tends to like the right lane a lot, whereas humans tend to want to avoid the right lane, so we don't have to worry about oncoming traffic, or when you have a exit coming up and say 1 kilometer, it might have you all the way over in the left lane instead of being in the middle or in the right lane, so that way you're ready to take that exit. How have you felt about Nav on Autopilot?
I'm very much a right-hand lane driver unless I need to pass somebody. So yeah, I try to heed it. I mean, there's times, of course, when you're not paying attention and it's like, okay, you need to move over. The one thing that I've noticed with Autopilot or Navigate on Autopilot is it tends to have a propensity sometimes to make predictions that don't make sense.
Right.
It'll say, well, change this lane. I'm like, no, there's nobody. Why do you want me to change lanes? And then, of course, then you look at where you're driving. You're like in the leftmost lane. I'm like, oh, I understand now. You want me to move over, stay out of the fast lane, right? So there's occasional times with that. I mean, let's face it. Tesla's still learning. The system is still learning. They got a ways to go. Full self-driving's not here yet. Although, the people that I've shown Autopilot in its current stage with Navigate on Autopilot, and especially once they get rid of the confirmed lane change,
that's what I'm looking forward to.
When that happens, that is absolutely going to blow everybody's mind, because to them, to the uninitiated, that is essentially a full self-driving car.
Right.
Even though it's not.
And on the highway,
not making claims, but
and on the highway, it's that level 3, that nebulous level 3.
We are definitely, we're rubbing against level 3. Absolutely, we're on the cusp of it.
Because you can't totally ignore what's happening around you like level 4 can.
No.
But it's certainly the car is making more decisions for you than it used to.
Yeah.
And it's kind of funny because in discussing the levels, the SAE levels for self-driving, nobody can ever really pin down what level 3 is supposed to be, and I think Nav on Autopilot is it. It's that autonomy that works in a specific situation, but not all the time, and you are still ultimately responsible for the car.
Absolutely. And my favorite feature that I like to tell people when I talk about Autopilot kind of in general is eventually we should be able to get something, what I call seek and park mode.
Right.
Which is get out of the car, press a button, the car will find its own parking space.
Which will be phenomenal.
We're
getting the reverse of that, allegedly, soon here.
Yeah, exactly. So, for me, that's going to be, like, killer. I mean, I don't use Summon. It's a neat party trick. I'll show it at car shows.
Very limited real-world use. I like to say the best use for it for me has been, as the father of 2, if someone parks close to you and you have a younger kid that you need to get into a car seat, summoning it out and then getting them in the car seat is the best use for Summon for me.
Yeah.
Or, in my instance, on the way up here, if you happen to not park close enough to the supercharger and you're lazy, like I am, and you don't want to get back in the car, you just pop out your phone and summon it a little bit further back.
That I typically use.
Actually, the one other time I will use Summon, when I pick up my youngest son from daycare, you have the car line, and the back of the car line typically ends up very close to a curve, and if you don't pull up for people, they end up it ends up getting like really kind of like people are having to walk around the edge of a building, around a blind curve with traffic, and that's not good. So if I see from inside the building that people have moved up or driven away, I'll pop out summon and move the car up autonomously. And it's funny because the ladies that watch my youngest, they get a kick out of it every time. They're like, I can't believe you can do that.
Yeah.
All right, well, we're getting ready to park here at Trev's. We'll leave you for a moment here, and we'll come back and we'll finish up having a chat at maybe over some coffee, hopefully, at Trev's table, and kind of put a bow on this thing. So see you guys in a few. We were talking about the frunk size, and we'll give you a little look here. Model X frunk, definitely bigger than I am used to, because if we come over here to the S, don't mind my dirty frunk right now. Definitely not exactly nowhere near what the X has, for sure. I wish it was that big, because man, that very nearly looks like you could manage to set up the golf clubs. I don't know if you could get a set in there or not. At least not mine.
You'd have to take the driver out, but yeah, you can. Mm-hmm. Don't ask me how I know. I don't golf, but I know.
All right, now we're heading inside. We'll see you in a couple. So we haven't really talked a lot. I mean, we touched a little on the future with the Roadster, but so anyone, do you or your wife have any interest in Model Y? Because I know for me, my wife is not a fan of the Falcon Wing doors, and I think the consensus is now that Model Y probably not going to have Falcon Wing doors. No. So that's what we're kind of looking at, and if the Subaru happens to fail us before then she'll probably end up in a Model 3. But any interest in that in your life? Maybe that 3 reservation goes to a Y?
That's a definite possibility, because my wife does like hatchbacks. Mm-hmm. Like our Golf is a hatchback. And she has made comments about the Model 3, about certain things that she doesn't like, which is understandable, because there's no such thing as a perfect car for everybody. Even a perfect car, you might have some quibbles about that. So there's a possibility a Model Y might be in the running. Again, it all floats around price, because for us financially, for a car that doesn't get driven very much, it's a lot of money to spend.
That price might push you right out of it, because I think I'm in the minority on this, but I think Model Y is actually going to be fairly pricey. I believe my prediction was $51,000 base price, and my thought process behind that was that Tesla wasn't going to have another Model 3 on their hands, where they literally can't build the base model for 2 years after they start it. So I think that what they're going to do with that one, and again, wild ass speculation here, folks. But I think what they're going to do with that one is kind of what they've done when they give us the price reduction after getting rid of the referral program. They're going to start with a higher base price and then drop it back as they are able to.
As far as advertising it, yeah, they may decide to go down that route. Look, for those of you who are watching, this might be your first rodeo, but the way that Tesla does things typically up until now has always been advertise the base price, but always start with the high-end models first and then work your way down, because they don't have 50 models where they can spread losses across different cars. So they always have to sell the high-end models,
and particularly at the beginning when the margins aren't as good and they haven't quite got the manufacturing process down and the ramp up.
However, Model 3 being profitable, that may help them kind of shore up the the program a little bit. My personal opinion, if they do advertise the base price of the Model Y, it would not surprise me to be in the $40K range, US, $5,000 premium, maybe a little less depending how crazy they go with the car. Obviously, I don't expect anything at Falcon Wing doors and stuff. It will be based on the Model 3 drivetrain battery, that type. I mean, they said 75. Yeah, they said 75%. So, and it will have some special Tesla flair, because no car goes untouched, as far as something unique in the car. But I don't expect the price, at least from the base model, to be much more than what the Model 3 is at this point. Minus some a few premium features. But to your point about how they price things, this whole Model 3 thing, I think at least in the public's eye, how they advertised it as far as the price is concerned on a mass market car, the 35K thing has bitten them. Mm-hmm. They still haven't produced it, and we know
Model X went through the same thing too for a little while, because you couldn't get the base Model X for a long time.
Well, the thing was with the Model X, because I followed that program very closely, is that when they first announced the car, they announced the pricing on the Founder Series. Well, as we know with the Founder Series, they're always fully loaded, right? So that skewed the media a certain way. But it was about 8 or 9 months later when they finally, But I think if you look at it from a timescale aspect, with the production numbers they do on Model X compared to say Model 3, that it could be offered fairly quickly after that. So we'll see what transpires.
I thought you're going to know that history better than I'm going to, but I thought the 5-seat Model X was like over a year after announcement.
That's true. Again, for my understanding with Tesla with the Model X is that when they showed the prototype, it had folding second row seats, right?
Yeah, because they had that beautiful demo of everything completely flat, and then they had the post seats.
Exactly, but they spent an inordinate amount of time on the 6-seat variant because of the mechanically, and they had a lot of problems with their manufacture of the seats, and then they built their own seat factory and stuff. So that really set things back quite a ways. But I think in a lot of ways it actually plays into their typical, let's build the high-end models, the highest margin things first, and then we'll chip away at it eventually. So, yeah, the 7-seat or the 5-seat variant with the folding seats did take longer than expected, but it works. I know in my case, because I ended up getting an inventory car, I didn't have a choice. I was actually going to spring initially for the 5-seat variant because I was thinking, well, maybe I don't need the 2 extra jump seats. And then I went, well, maybe for resale I should spring for the 7-seat. And eventually when I pulled the trigger, it was like, well, we have 2 inventory cars and they're both 6-seat. And I guess I don't have a choice.
Well, there it is.
Now, it is the nicest configuration if you're going to move people.
Yeah.
But if you're going to carry stuff, it ain't so good.
Yeah, and actually for that reason, because my wife, I mentioned she's not really a fan of the Falcon Wing doors, but I did get her to sit in one, and she's like, well, we would have to have the 5-seat version because I want the extra room in the back. She knows the seats fold down and everything, but she wants to be able to carry people, up to 5 people and not folding the seats down, still have plenty of cargo room. And that you're only going to get that with the 5-seater.
Now, the Model X is an excellent people mover. I mean, yes, the doors are fancy and stuff, but the egress and the ingress of that car from the 2nd row seat, it's unparalleled.
The 6-seat one really is the sweet spot for sure. Because unlike if you haven't been in a Model X, if you have the 7-seat version, you can't get through the middle, so you got to bring the side seats back and get in, and it's still fine, but I'm not getting in that back seat. I literally cannot. I've tried.
Have you ever seen the one with the 6-seat with the center console?
I've not. I've only in pictures, not in person.
I've experienced it in person, and I was like, no, there's no way I'm paying for that because it's not worth it to me.
It's just not. The convenience factor is just gone.
It was short-lived. I mean, they don't even offer it anymore. So.
Well, much like everything that Tesla has done. If they find out that no one's picking it up and it's not worth their while,
they're quick to drop it.
Out it goes. Yeah. I mean, rest in peace. Silver metallic paint color.
Obsidian black.
Yeah, that too. And the funny part about
titanium silver. Sorry, my favorite.
See that we disagree there.
I think it shows my age. That's just me.
We disagree there for sure, but to each their own. And actually, if you go further back, the dark green on the Model S, the brown, which I saw here recently on the Model S, going the wayside. But I mean, if you think about it, if you're buying a Tesla right now, there's only 2 colors that you can get.
The other ones are
blue and red. Everything else is a shade of black.
Yeah. Well, and I've made this point many times, on YouTube or whatever, that if you look at cars on the market today, we've become very color adverse. Everything is black or white or gray, and very little red. I mean, hardly any yellow, any green, like none of that crazy.
Which is funny too, because I'll tell you what, other than red, which is, I wanted to.
Well, red is universal. Blue is what's trendy right now. Right?
And blue Tesla blue is gorgeous, especially the new blue. Some people prefer the old blue better. I like the new blue better, but yeah.
They've gone through 3 different shades of blue. The latest one is really nice. My personal opinion, as far as the Tesla colors are concerned right now, I think they're a little overdue for a refresh.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. And especially when the Roadster comes out, when the new Roadster comes out, there will be colors, I am sure. I will be stunned.
If they can get away with low volume production like they did on the original Roadster, maybe they can do some more adventurous colors like orange.
Yeah, because there was an orange. I'm trying to remember. There was a yellow. They had yellow too, didn't they, on the original Roadster?
Oh, yeah, they had a lot of
yellow, blue, orange. Was there a green? I don't remember if there was green or not.
I believe there was a lime or like a candy or like a Granny Smith color green type of thing. Yeah, they have a lot more colors than they do.
But again, when you make they make like a total of 3,500 Roadsters or something like that.
2,500. Well, remember they were all built by Lotus.
Right.
They were sent here, and Tesla installed the drivetrain and called it a day. So Lotus was painting the cars, not.
Well, and then they ended up not using they still ended up customizing the crap out of the thing too.
Oh, I think Elon said that with the Lotus Elise, which the car is based on, I think it ended up sharing about 6% of the parts.
Right. It was like they should have just built the car.
Well, in their infinite wisdom when they first started, they thought,
it's a good thought.
Well,
it seems logical.
If you listen to Mark Tarpening, who does a presentation, and you can find it on YouTube if you Google it, they thought, well, all the manufacturers are basically, the only thing that they retain in-house now is final assembly, or like building the body, largely, final assembly, and engine manufacturing. Everything else is literally farmed out. Why can't we do the same thing? But they made a mistake because they didn't realize that unless you're one of these big players, you're not going to get the pricing, and you're not going to get preferential treatment, and you're not going to get the A-list players. So the car ended up costing, so much more than anticipated. So now, over time, Tesla has fixed those problems by largely internalizing all those manufacturing, like seats and casting and motor development and all that other stuff is brought in-house.
Well, and now that they're, what did we see here recently? They were the #1 U.S. luxury car manufacturer last year. So now they get those A-list players if they need them. Because if Mercedes
there's still room for improvement, though.
Agreed, definitely. There's always room for improvement, but
I just had a conversation with somebody today because I was at the Canadian Auto Show yesterday, and I sat down in a Mercedes E-Class, and I posted a picture of the dash and the interior, and somebody was saying, well, it's so much better than the Model 3 or so much better than the Tesla. And I said, well, you have to put it into context. Mercedes has been at this over 100 years. Tesla's been building cars on their own, not Lotus, for 7.
Right.
And look how far they've come in 7 years. What are they going to be able to achieve in another 5, 6, or 7 years? Well, so you have to give them a bit of a break here.
Well, not only that, but the E-Class is not a Model 3 either.
No, of course. But if you approach a Model S or a Model X in the price category they're at, and you compare it to an E-Class you're getting into, you can make that argument. But I've also said many times, too, that people equate luxury with more.
Right.
And Tesla's edict is minimalism. Yeah. So how do you impart luxury with a minimalist interior? It's a fine balance, right?
Well, and the argument has been made a couple times too that Tesla's luxury is not in the finishings on the trappings on the inside. It's the conveniences that Tesla gives you and the technology. That's where Tesla's luxury is at. Because as all of you out there, just 50.6 is rolling out here, and not 50.6. What is the current firmware? I'm missing it.
I haven't even checked in the last couple, and I should know better. So bad on me.
The dog. How about this? The dog mode.
Sentry mode and dog mode.
Sentry mode and dog mode. That didn't exist yesterday or the day before, and now it does. And that's the bit of Tesla that's the magic.
However, take everything that you've said right now, and let's say they get around to doing a refresh to the S and the X interior at this point, which has been rumored to be somewhere maybe in the third quarter of this year, possibly. And let's say they improve the fit and finish, the materials. I mean, they did hire somebody from Volvo a couple of years ago. Yeah. So, you don't hire somebody and have them sit in the corner. You're going to put them to work, right? So, and these things take time. So, take that into context, and let's say they actually do radically change the interior for something better. At that point, does that remove? Because let's face it, anybody who's looked at a Model S and by extension a Model X, the number one complaint's always been about the interior.
Right.
Now, I don't have a problem with the interior. The minimalism suits my particular desire. It's great. It's a breath of fresh air. And never have I ever been to a car show or shown the car and people go, oh, this thing's not luxury. It's like, wow, this thing is really a spaceship. So I think that's kind of what they're trying to impart with people. Now, however, take a spaceship type design, improve the materials, maybe a little extra, plushiness, and maybe, and then maybe you take that argument away completely. I don't know.
Maybe, yeah. And again, it's the subjectivity of, do you like all the knobs and switches you can possibly have, or do you like the minimalism? Because, for me, and actually this is one reason why I like Model 3 better than my Model S, I love that minimalist interior. I think that is just I thought the lack of binnacle would bug me because there's more information to have Not necessarily that the speedo's not in front of me. I could care less about that. But the ability to have more information. But I found when I was driving Nick's car that I enjoyed the fact that there was more of the road to see.
That's
more
nice,
than anything.
Yeah, that's a nice side effect of the Model 3. Getting that out of the way just opens up, the view and stuff. So there's something to be said for that. But, if you look at Tesla, I mean, Tesla's kind of a funny company because you kind of have to read between the lines to see, because they're very secretive, obviously.
Right.
They don't talk about what they're doing unless they have something to say, and at that point they say something. But, they're very much a company you look and you read between the lines of what they're doing. I mean, when I first saw the Model 3 interior, I thought, oh, that's really interesting. And I thought, I wonder if they're going to do that to the rest of the product line. And I thought to myself, you know what? The next event will be the semi-truck. If we see that interior or that treatment on the semi-truck, we know instantly that is the direction they're going to take, because history shows that's what they did for the Model S when they got the facelift, because the facelift was introduced in April of 2016, right after the Model 3. 2016. Yeah, that's right. And that's, when the Model X first came out on stage. Well, let me back up.
Because it had the cone originally.
Yeah, exactly. So the Model X had the old cone. When they did the reveal event or the delivery event of the first Model X in September of 2015, if I remember correctly, or 2014. I don't know. My dates are messed up. Anyways, when we saw the new front end, I thought, oh, now I know possibly where the Model 3 is going.
Right.
And then we saw the Model 3. We knew exactly. And I said, okay, now we know what the Model S is going to look like. Sure enough, a month later, that's what they did. So if you look at Tesla's history and how they do things, you can get a pretty good idea of what direction they're going. And of course, the Model 3 interior is exactly the same treatment we're going to get. We saw it on the Model 3, the semi-truck. If you look at the Roadster's still early days.
Well, and it's a little bit unique in its own.
It has its own little thing going on. I mean, they got rid of door handles. I mean, Tesla's gone through 4 different designs of door handles so far.
And they're trying again to not have side mirrors.
Well, that's a regulatory thing. I mean,
right? I know.
Every time they introduce some kind of new prototype, they get rid of the mirrors, because you can tell. I mean, if the regulation came down and they said, okay, no more mirrors, I mean, Tesla would drop them like a hot potato.
Yeah, in a second.
They want to get rid of those mirrors so bad. But as you know, I mean, the regulations in the U.S. move at a very glacial state. I mean, Tesla and other manufacturers are pushing very, very hard to get rid of mirrors for years.
Well, actually to that point, it's funny because we talk about full self-driving. We can't even get rid of mirrors, for goodness sakes, and they're going to let the cars drive themselves. So I think he's kind of hinted as much that the technology will be here long before the regulation catches up.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, they could certainly. I mean, if you look at the Audi e-tron, their new SUV. In Germany, where they're going to sell it, they're going to get rid of the mirrors because they built the cameras into the little doors.
Yeah.
Now, I just sat in the e-tron yesterday. Very nice car, by the way. I mean, it has its own issues and stuff, but the interior is certainly very Tesla-like in terms of the screens and stuff, but it has a much more luxurious feel. And I'll talk about that in my next video that I'm going to put out. But if Tesla was to take kind of their design ethic and apply some of the stuff they've done in the e-tron or the E-Class, EQC, I mean, they're all kind of mashed together and stuff. They certainly have a potential to really, up their game as far as the interior is concerned. So I think they can still maintain and I hate to go back on this, but they can still maintain their simplicity design while still upping, the luxury cred and stuff. So anyways, we'll see what happens, but...
Yeah, I mean, basically ditching the plastic where there's plastic, ditching the kind of the hard touch stuff in the car for stuff that's more soft touch. That's the constant complaint that I see.
And you know what? It doesn't take a lot of money to do this, because I was just sitting yesterday in a brand new Mazda 3 Series. I mean, we're talking a $22,000 car here, okay? And aside from the fact that it's gas and not electric, the interior on that thing is amazing for what you're buying.
I saw your comment about that, yeah.
It's unbelievable. So there's no reason why Tesla couldn't do something like that. I mean, I like the Model 3 interior the way it is. It's great. But if you took some of those treatment that Mazda's done and applied that, man, you'd have a really killer car at any price, I think. So there's room for improvement. I mean, there's no perfect car, but I think in the interior space, there are definitely some improvements that Tesla could make for sure in the rest of the product line.
So why is it that every single time I get in the car, the music requesting doesn't work? I have to type it in.
It doesn't like you.
Music requesting?
She likes to use the voice command.
So
The voice command can be pretty hit or miss.
yes, and to your point about music in general, this is another one of the things that Tesla could fix. The entertainment system is weird. So I'll get in the car and I will have used the streaming service with my favorites radio, but it will still activate my phone. And so whatever I was playing on my phone last will start playing without me knowing it. So I have missed literal podcast, like entire podcast episodes, because my phone starts playing and I didn't realize it.
Oh,
I've had that
it's
happen.
playing, and you're like,
And you don't hear it because it's set to the streaming station.
yeah.
And then at random, it'll decide, oh, I know you're using your phone last. We're gonna play the radio next time you walk in.
For me, and it drives me nuts. Sometimes you get in the car and you listen to the podcast. You're like halfway through, and you get in. You don't pay attention to the time and stuff. And get back in the car. You park and come back, and freaking thing starts all over again.
Oh,
I've never had that happen.
well, it does if it's a streaming podcast, and the same with the music. So the great thing
Right.
about the music is
It will always start from the beginning.
You probably
Yeah.
didn't hear the whole song before you got it.
But
Right?
God forbid if you listen to that whole song, then you're in purgatory for at least 24 hours before you can listen to it again.
So you always turn it off just before it's over, and then like, woo, get to see that song again. You get back in, you know exactly what you're listening to. And he knows every time he gets in what I was last listening to, because I have it on streaming almost all the time.
And if I'm listening to music, that's usually what I'm doing too, because I'm not really a big music guy. I'm a freaking geek.
Yeah.
So I'm listening to podcasts
And
almost all the time.
Podcasts and audiobooks.
Yep. Conversation. I don't know if you saw here recently, but they recently Tesla gave a hacking competition a Model 3 and said hack it. And
if you win,
if you actually can do it, and because I don't know how they were handling if multiple people actually were able to do it. If it's the first person or who it happens to
that's
be.
a good question.
But
So that means
they're going
taking
to
over somebody's car that they're driving, or
to find a vulnerability in the car software. If you can do it, they're going to let you drive that car home.
And
It's
not over
it's
yet.
not. Yeah, it has. I think it's getting ready to start actually.
Yeah, it's in Vancouver, so we'll have to look in and see
Pwn
what
to
So
own.
what is
Don't
it? Sit in
own.
your driveway and it doesn't belong to you, and you got to figure out.
No,
how
they
to-
have one
they
that
have
they're
one
taking to
specifically.
the show.
Yeah,
And
They
here
let
it
you
is.
go
Go
crazy.
at it.
Yeah,
Figure it out.
and that's good because that actively promotes, better security at the end of the day, right? Open source. There's a reason there's open source, because people are looking at the secret recipe. So the more eyeballs you have on it, the better chances of finding
Right.
vulnerabilities, right?
And open source isn't perfect by
course
any
not.
stretch,
Nope.
because a lot of times the eyeballs aren't there to catch things. But at least if you choose to, you can audit that stuff.
Exactly.
So there was this is back in, I think, 2014, I want to say. It's an old one, but back at DEF CON, there was two hackers that had a presentation on Model S when it was still relatively new. And they were just blown away by the lengths that Tesla went to secure the car. They ended up, I think, finding 3 vulnerabilities, but none of them were able to be exploited if you didn't have physical access to the car.
That's right.
And you had to make some fairly significant modifications to get to that point.
Unlike
too.
Chrysler, who had a lot of problems with the
Jeep.
The
Oh,
Jeep,
God.
right? They would just over the air hack into the car.
I'm gonna stop your car now. I will
Yeah.
never forget that. I think it was a 60 Minutes I was watching when they did that. I'm like,
Yeah, that was bad.
and then the one remote flaw that was found, it was a Chinese hacking group, I think, that found that had something to do with the service Wi-Fi. They found a way to, if they could convince your car to join a malicious Wi-Fi network, and I think you had to visit a malicious web page too, or something like that, if I remember
Sounds
right.
like some of the early vulnerabilities on the iPhone, right?
But yeah, it was basically it was remote, and there was some caveats to it, but it was the first remote vulnerability that I was aware of. But other than those couple, I'm not aware of anything
Why do you
else.
think Tesla's not spending too much time improving the browser?
Or no, this is the better one. The fabled app and third-party apps. That's never going to happen.
No.
I guarantee you, they're never going to let that happen.
And people, it still pops up on Twitter and social media once in a while. "Oh, what about the SDK? No,
Not going to happen.
no, it's just not going to happen.
I mean, we have these,
'Cause
these awesome apps that use the APK, and I wonder how long that's going to be still able to be accessed to. I fear that somehow all these third-party apps that some of us use.
I've had, when I was on Android, I would download stuff and you never know what you're going to get. Even from the Google store, you would get stuff that was infected. It was crazy. At least with Apple, they spent a lot of time securing it. And now it's not been perfect.
Yeah, but better.
But way better than anything else, right? So Tesla going down, that's a slippery slope if you go down that way with Tesla. And I know Elon said early on in the early days, 2013, that we're thinking about doing some kind of SDK, and then since then it just went quiet.
Yeah, you've heard nothing after that, and I don't think you ever will. It's just too much of a liability.
You can't be opening that up because it's just a vector of somebody doing something nefarious with the car.
And I think that's part of the reason that Android Auto and CarPlay aren't in there either, other than the licensing, because that's the main reason.
That's absolutely true. And not a day goes by when I don't hear somebody on Twitter asking for those features on the car, and I'm like, well, I don't think it's going to happen, but it doesn't change the fact that Tesla needs to spend some more resources on the media player, which is still busted. But it's better than most media players I've ever seen in any other car.
Yeah, no.
So everything in context, right?
Yeah, I'd say to me, it's still hands down the best entertainment system in any vehicle on the road, barring being able to connect with Android Auto or CarPlay or something like that. Yeah. So please show me a better one if you think it's that bad. I'm waiting.
Well, we should almost sign off on this, yeah? Yeah,
I think this is about it, because I'm already going to be hurting when I get home.
How long was your drive?
About 7 hours. So
DJ came up 7 hours to see me. We spent 4 or 5 hours together, and now he's going to drive home.
For you, the listeners and viewers out there that see this.
It's not like I didn't offer him a place to stay, but he has engagements. He has to come.
Yeah, I have other responsibilities to take care of. Otherwise, yes, I would have hung out here overnight and Nutmeg's not around anymore to kind of say hi, but and had a cat sleep on.
Well, you know what they say, the difference between adults and kids is responsibility. So that makes us grown-ups, I guess. Is that right?
Yeah, I think that's what that means. All right, normally I would sign off from the car here and have some extra thoughts, but it's going to be dark when I get back to the car, so I'm going to sign off here. If you like what you see here, definitely hit that subscribe button. I can definitely use some subscribers. As always, if you want to hear the flagship show, which if you're unaware of it and haven't, and you've just happened upon this video, 3 days a week for roughly 5 minutes a day, I give you the latest Tesla news available each Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. If you really like what I do, Patreon's out there, patreon.com/Tesla Tidbits. Any support you want to provide, definitely so much appreciated. So that's it. I think I'm going to sign off and get out of here. Thank you again for hanging out with me, Trev.
Anytime, buddy.
Really appreciate it. Definitely have to come back again another time, and we'll chat. Maybe after you get that Roadster.
Well, we'll be doing a tour, so at some point we'll certainly be hitting Ohio for sure. So.
All right.
Thanks for coming out.
Take care, everyone.
Good night.